Thank you for watching another Morristown Matters video. Today is March the 14th, 2022. It is approximately 5:30 p.m. and we are headed into the Hamblen County meeting. So let's make our way up into there.
Chris, you
We want to call our March 14th, 2022 committee meeting to order.
Any one of them?
Commissioners, if you have not already turned on your mic,
Thank you.
we ask that you please do so at this time. At this time, the chair will recognize Chris Cutshaw, Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. In Commissioner Ford's absence, he sends his apologies, could not be here tonight, so I'll do my best to fill in for him. We'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Our named visitors who would like to address the committee, you have 5 minutes to do so.
My name is Linda Noe, Joe Stevens Road. I have 3 items at least that I'd like to ask about regarding finances and county buildings. At your last meeting, you authorized the mayor to advertise for real estate consultant services. I haven't seen it. Has that been done? Or is that just another vote you all take and forget it? Mr. Vice Chairman, do you know? Have you seen an advertisement? Okay. Several months ago, it seems like you were going to take a bid on painting the roof for the Hale House. I don't check the county site all the time, but I haven't seen anything in the newspaper about that. Is that another one you just vote and the mayor does it or doesn't, whatever he feels like? Do you know, Mr. Vice Chairman?
No, ma'am, I don't.
I think it was December, it might have been January, there was a discussion about the library and problems with the gutter and or roof. Does anybody here know what happened with that? Mr. Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee, do you know?
No, ma'am, I do not.
Well, I can tell you what I know. At the last city council meeting, Tony Cox interrupted the work session and said, "Oh, I have an email from the mayor, Mayor Brittian. The insurance is going to pay for most of the repair at the library." Did you know that? You're nodding your head.
I did not know that.
Okay. And then the remainder, I guess the deductible or whatever the agreement is, will be split between the city and the county. That's been almost 2 weeks ago. And you all weren't told. Things stopped downstairs in the mayor's office. That is very important. And I'll tell you, the city administrator puts out a weekly report for the city council. If you ever go back and have a rules committee, that is something you should include. Update you. And frequently he'll be talking about the same thing week after week because he's just updating and then maybe it gets done and then he'll announce that. You all don't know what's going on. I say that respectfully. I think you would like to know, and some of you may be on the inside and get a little inside information. we just found out most of you don't know what's going on. The last thing I would like to ask is in regard to Ms. Green's lawsuit against Mr. Capps for double dipping. Does he still receive the fixed fee from the county for attending finance committee and commission meetings? And secondarily, back in July of 2018, you received a letter from Mayor Brittian saying that Mr. Capps was going to suspend his billings, his hourly billings for attending finance committee and commission meetings until Ms. Green's, or I took it to be until the lawsuit was resolved. My second question, and I wish someone would get this answer. It's your job. You should know this. Did Mr. Capps' billings now, or for the last year, are there any billings by the hour for attending finance committee and commission meetings? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to address the finance committee? Seeing none, we'll move into recurring business, expenditure reports. Is there a motion to accept?
I make a motion.
No action necessary, my bad. Recurring business, and then, old business, there is none. We'll go down to new business. 4A, Justice Center Project, Tony Pettit.
Excuse me, get a second on that.
Didn't name one.
Yeah, well, it's,
2B.
2B, I'm sorry, so
We
sorry.
need a motion and a second.
The second, yeah, that's not bad. 2B, review and acceptance of monthly checks for February 2022.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Doty.
Second.
Second, Mr. Goins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. No business, 3A, there is none. We'll move to 4, Justice Center report from Tony Pettit.
Good afternoon. The report is wet in February. It had about 8 or 9 inches of rain, but they're staying on the schedule. The schedule still shows that. They've got grading down to the building pad sections, or the mat slab foundations. They started their soil nail wall. You go by the side, you'll see the gunite fence ready. The ties being drilled into the soil nail, the soil nail wall. And they've tested the knocker piles. They went a little deeper in the test areas than the 45 feet that we got in the bid, but it should average out. They were indicated they'd be a little deeper in the area that didn't test. Tests all passed, they're approved. Submittals are ongoing. The concrete contractor is got submittals in, rebar is being fabricated, and will be delivered to the site. But right now, for the next month or so, you're going to see micropiles and soil mineral being installed. And you want to go on into 2B?
Sure, 4B, go ahead and tell me with the, Justice Center change order number 1. Please give us detail on that.
Okay, so the change order number 1, if you have a copy of that, you'll see a PCO listing there. And what this architect is going to do is submit these PCOs. And PCO basically stands for potential change order. And eventually we go through that, vet that out, see if it's an issue, see if it's really a change to the documents and the work. And the architect approves it. I kind of sit in on that approval. And so the first 2 items of that are actually credits. We had an overage of unsuitable allowances. We talked about that some the last meeting, where we had overrun those unsuitables. We had an allowance in the bid of 1,500 yards, and it ran over 1,300 more yards. So that added to the number. But then we had several meetings with the discussion of the soil cement on the Justice Center side, which is a layer of soil cement about 18 inches thick. And it was determined that with the layback of the walls and the permanent soil nail wall and the excavation there, that we would not need that. And the geotechnical engineers recommended that, so we took that credit. So that made that item number one, PCO number one, is a negative number of $28,234. Then there was in the brick that was chosen, that was in the specification, was a brick that's going to be used both on the Justice Center, which is a full steel brick masonry unit, and then it's also was having to be taking the face of it and saw it off and put in a grid for the precast on the Justice Center, on the jail, on the tower. That wasn't going to work very well. This one really got kicked around ever since the contractor got on board. So there was a brick that was submitted that was a PCI approved brick, which means the standards on it would fit in this grid. You wouldn't have the issues with it. It is also able to make it a thin face and a full brick. The brick costs more, but they didn't have the cost of selling the brick, the other brick. So the credit ended up being $10,000 to substitute this brick. PCO number 9 is a field change between the structural and the micropiles. The structural engineer ended up increasing the areas where the micropiles pile caps were, and he added 241 cubic yards of concrete. And this resulted in a change of $109,051.
Why do you increase that, Tom?
I think he determined that the seismic friction and the loads on the building, he felt that we had 3 more meetings asking him if that was necessary, and then moving off of it. So it was more loads on it, and then we offered a different way of trying to cut the cost, and we couldn't do that either. He wanted that in a monolithic pour, he wanted it deeper, and
We didn't know this beforehand.
it's an engineer, structural engineer that did this, so certainly didn't know it. So
I didn't have a structural engineer on the project.
just you did. The structural engineer just reviewed it and added the concrete.
Is it the same structural engineer or different?
No, it's the engineer record. He had the on it.
The same one as before the bids let out, before we let the bids out, we knew what it was, but now we got.
And he increased it to where it added 241 cubic yards of concrete.
Was there a specific reason that he saw that we needed more? I mean, obviously it's for the foundational safety of the whole building, but is there some discovery that created this?
No, he really not a good excuse, but he added it. We approached it 2 or 3 different ways of kind of licking your calf and trying to get it reduced in a more constructible way, and we kind of stuck these guns and no, I need to increase it. I need to increase the depth of this thickened area.
But surely the engineer knew this prior to. He built one.
Evidently he didn't.
Well, is this the first one he ever did?
I'm not familiar with the engineers.
Oh.
Very experience. So. I mean, I'm very frustrated with it. And these things come up.
I'm a mechanic. If I working on a car, it was a V8, I went and put 6 cylinders in, 6 plugs in the car, and it's like, well, later on, well, we need 8 of them. You know, it's just, I knew it needed 8.
Right, and
As our project manager, Tony, we appreciate that you argued that, but it doesn't sit well to start off right away and find something.
yeah, if you notice, there's PCO1, but you also got PCO9, and there's more issues that we're tracking.
Right, I got you.
And you will typically find most of the unknowns. Not making excuses for the engineer, I can't.
Yeah.
Okay, you just kind of bringing you up to speed. You'll find most of your surprises will be at the beginning of the job. You want to find. I'm in here one day talking about a sanitary sewer line that they discovered that they got to address. There's another report coming about power to the existing jail that's not properly addressed to keep them in service. So you'll see some of those coming through.
Is there a way you can go and come back to us at another time and saying why? Tell us why he didn't know about this beforehand, or why we do it now.
I've already asked him why. And I was kind of asking.
I mean, what's he saying? What's he saying about why are we doing it now? Prior
I
to
could go ask him specifically that. I was asking him more in frustration than anything about it. So, and basically, are you really sure you want to add 200? You know, when we first started talking about it, we thought it was 260 yards of concrete. Is our takeoff.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't care if it's 10,000 yards of concrete. I want to be safe and I want to be good.
I can certainly report back on you on why. Okay. I'll tell you what he told me. All right, but I'll ask him.
Of this cost that we're seeing here, of this change order, is this only material and labor?
Labor and material.
Labor?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's obvious that I feel like we need it. Is there a motion to accept this?
I'll make a motion we accept it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. For new business 4C, resolution for Hamblen County 2022 bond resolution. Mayor?
Also, just before we leave the topic on the change order, the $70,000 won't increase the budget for the project. We have a contingency of $1.8 million in the budget. That's the intention.
I think what we realize, we just want to know why isn't that in there for the beginning, when we first did that.
Well, I understand, but I just wanted to let you guys know where the money was coming from, and so they will come from the contingency that we have. Okay, there's a resolution in your packet. It's a bond resolution that is for the next bond issue for the Justice Center project. It's a $50 million issue. And it's part of the original plan that I presented in October as far as financing the project. And so this is the next one. We've moved it up a little bit time-wise just because of the uncertainty around interest rates. They've been rising. And so we wanted to take advantage of we didn't want to wait in conversations with Chris Bessler from Cumberland Securities. If you want to, he's here if you want to question him about it. In your packet, these aren't in your packet. Here's a slide that shows the dark colored, which I wish I put another color, are the two issues that we've already done. And that's in January 2020, the $20 million, and then December we did the $10 million. And then we originally had this next $50 million scheduled for June. And the interest rate we received in January of 2020 was 2.39, and then 196 in December. So those were under what we had budgeted and what we presented you guys, and then those are our budget amounts. And interest rates right now and other costs associated with bond issues are kind of all over the place. And so Chris can explain that, but what we want to do is go ahead and do the issue. It'll be in April, so it'll be a couple of months early, and it will be to try to get as low an interest rate as we possibly can.
Mayor, are we not locked in with these rates already?
Yes. Well, not the dark colored ones, yes. But not these other. These are our budget numbers.
Is there any way we can lock them in?
These were what we put the plan together with. They were estimates. Like the 325 on the 50 is an estimate.
So if it goes up to 7%, we have to pay 7%.
Yeah, but now that's not what I have.
No, but I'm just saying, you said, definitely. There's no money left in it early.
I mean, we could, if you want, what we could do is issue the whole thing at once and lock in a rate. But
That's the only way you can lock it in.
that's the only way we can lock it in.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, because if you look at what happened on, it went up, I can't remember what it was, 25% or something like that, I can't remember. But the other day it went up, and it's going to continue to climb, I feel.
Well, and that's been what's been going on the last couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why we're before you.
Can we
Do
look at?
you think the risk of doing that is better? Going ahead and paying interest now on the whole thing?
Well, I hate to do that, but if it's going to save us money in the long run, yeah.
Mr. Besser, could you enlighten us, please?
Sir, Rich Bessler, Cumberland Securities. As the mayor was talking about, we were originally looking at doing this next $50 million at the 1st of June. Now we're looking at moving that up about a month and a half, just as now the timing can allow that with where rates are heading and uncertainty in the global market. So there's been, as the mayor referenced, and as Commissioner Goins just said, seeing rate movements of 0.5% here going up in some of the treasuries, and municipals are undergoing the same uncertainty in the market. And so right now, the plan that the mayor is putting forth is to go ahead and advance this next $50 million with everything going on from a world standpoint with the Russia and Ukraine situation. And then also we've got inflation going on here with concerns of stagflation also, where you've got high inflation, but your growth is flat in terms of your economy. Trying to see if stuff settles by the time we get the rating in place on this $50 million and then go to market. In terms of, do you go ahead and do the rest of it? Well, obviously, if you do the rest of it, then you're going to have to pay your debt service on that, even though you've not spent that money yet. Now, in an ideal world, when the interest rates that you pay go up, the interest rates that you receive on your investments should theoretically go up. But that's not going to happen because the banks are overloaded with cash right now, and they have no incentive to pay higher interest. They don't want any more deposits. So they're trying to figure out how to get rid of their deposits, but they want to do so where they're making good money as well. And so right now what we've seen is that there has been an outflow of cash out of the market. So both from bond investments and also from stocks. That's the one that most people see is where the stock market is. And so with that, you have a lot of cash that's just sitting on the sidelines right now waiting to be deployed at some point.
So you don't recommend us doing that? Because you got March 23 right here, it's already up 0.25% right there. And that's, I know it's a guess.
That's just budget rates right there. So rates can go up, they can go down. In terms of timing, our firm has never been one to say, let's try to really time the market. It's just when you kind of see that rates are going up, you can say it might be better to go ahead and do this now. This schedule was put together based upon expected expenditures for the project.
Expenditures right there are already gone up 0.25%. Now is it going to go up higher than that? And always we're going to I don't want to sit here and say, well, I wish we would have done that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the commission's prerogative to, if you wanna advance that, you can obviously do that.
Explain to us, what would a recession do to us with the pressures we see in our world around us, and you know, this is just little Hamblen County, but yet it's gonna affect us. I just wonder, do we have any history of how a recession affects interest rates in the short term? I heard you say, you know, the banks are full of cash and they're trying to download it. Is there any balance in that? Just the idea of possible recession?
Yeah. It's a good question.
And Chris, if you look, they've already started tightening up a little bit.
Well, I agree with Tim. We don't want to see the interest rates rise high, but I'm thinking if a recession hits, again, my ignorance probably, but you know, a recession, they're going to possibly keep them where they're at.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it gets harder and harder to answer that because in recent history, you've seen the federal government and the Federal Reserve get involved to such an extent as to try to artificially keep rates low to light some fire under the economy. Well, that's all fine when your inflation index is really low like we've had for the last decade plus. But right now, when we've got an annualized inflation rate of around 7+%, it's hard for the Fed to turbocharge that. So they've kind of used up a lot of their ammunition, if you will, in terms of trying to keep an economy afloat instead of just letting the cards fall where they may and picking up from there and letting it move forward. So in the past, rates do tend to go down if there's a recession, but it's hard to say that that'll be the case because we've not had that coupled in recent years with high inflation and the supply issues that we're all aware of.
It's just an unknown.
What's the current rate?
Well, it depends on how long you're going out. So right now, we're probably pretty close to this 3.25 rate. The bond issue that we got to do back in December was what was called bank qualified. So if it's 10 million or under, you qualify for basically special treatment. Banks are allowed to bid on that. If it's over 10 million, commercial banks are not allowed to buy that and get the advantage on the interest carry from a tax standpoint. And so that advantage was very beneficial last December.
Your recommendation, sir?
Well, our recommendation would be, continue. You've got to fund this project. You've already started on it, so continue forward with it. Right now, there's a lot of turmoil. In the municipal market, in the bond market, and stock market. There's a lot of turmoil. Hopefully, this is something that's going to settle down in the next few weeks. These things don't tend to last too long, but we've got a lot of uncertainty with what's going on from a geopolitical standpoint. A lot of levers are being pulled from federal, from various countries. And so we're kind of in new territory right now.
Look, our leaders are. So if it goes up highly, you don't recommend it right now. So if it goes up real high, we can blame you, right?
I feel like our backs are against the wall. They're trying to make a good decision.
It's tough.
It's a no-brainer with the 50 million. We've got to go. But yet, like Commissioner Goins was saying, about any more.
Right. It's hard to know because I can't tell you where rates are going to go because I've spent, from 2011.
Even in your projections here, it looks like it's headed north because
I always go up higher in my projections the further away it is.
Oh, okay.
So if you were going to wait until September 23, I'd probably have a 375 on there. I try to go high on that, so that way hopefully we're not going to hit a surprise.
So the discussion we need to have is do we stay with what's here or do we consolidate all at once or?
Mr. Bessler, if we had done this stepped up a month ago, what projected interest rate do you think we would have gotten a month ago?
Had you stepped up a month ago, you'd probably be in market right now, so you'd probably be close to the 325. But right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, and underwriters are putting in. They lost money in January, they lost money in February. Wall Street did, and they're not wanting to lose money right now, so they're putting some extra cushion in it right now. So, right now would be a time where I'd say maybe we hold off until after the Fed meets this Wednesday, see what kind of direction they give. I mean, even the Fed governors are in conflict with one another.
We're gonna be coming back in September of this year to repeat the process.
Yeah.
Chris, when we took that's $50 million bond, we didn't know what the rate was gonna be when we did that, although we wasn't gonna use it till June. We didn't have any idea what that rate would be.
You haven't actually issued that debt yet. This resolution would be to approve the issuance of that debt, and then we would go out into the competitive market and solicit bids on the $50 million.
We just applied for the bond, but we never did get it issued on it.
No, you didn't apply for it even. That initial part was to go ahead and publish your intent to issue debt at some point, but the commission never approved the issuance of it. This is the approval of the $50 million.
We didn't know what it was gonna be, even if we'd taken out in June, we didn't know what it was.
Correct. You won't know until you go out and bid the bonds. And once they're bid, if for whatever reason we need to reject the bids, we can still reject the bids at that time.
There's no assurance on it's September or March the 13th.
Correct.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Go up.
Yeah. Yeah, and from a historic perspective, if you're locking in rates at 3%, 3.25%, you're under the historical rate of inflation as well. And so that's also something to keep in mind. The rates that we had on the January 2020 issue, the December issue a few months ago, that's a 2.39% and a 1.96%. That's just unthinkable rates, even as recently as a decade ago, to be that low. So right now we're starting to get back into what would be considered more normal territory.
If we'd have done this back in December the 21st, if we'd have taken that June deal and went ahead and issued it, we'd sure be money ahead. 196 versus 3.25.
Now you probably would have been closer to about a 2.4 or 2.5% then, because you would be over the $10 million threshold.
But if we'd have issued it at 196,
You can't do it, you have $10 million at the low. 1.96.
the what?
You gotta have $10 million or below to get the 1.96.
2 million below.
10 million or below.
For the calendar year, that is correct. And had you done it all in December, you would have exceeded that $10 million threshold.
We're at the mercy of the market, aren't we?
Pretty much. I just
Whatever the
think,
market's gonna do, is what we're gonna be doing.
But that's with everything,
yeah.
gas. Mr. Bessler, is there any benefit, at this moment to combining any of those bond issues? And today?
Yeah, that's a philosophy. It's more of a philosophy issue that the commission wants to take. Do you want to get your risk off the table so you know what your rate is and just pay, and then if rates go down in the future, then you look. Hindsight's always 20/20.
Sure.
And so it's always easy to go back and say we should have done this, we should have done that. I mean, ideally we would have done.
Okay, one other question. So we do this first $50 million bond issue. What's next? If we see opportunity to move, what's the difference if we another bond issue before September?
That's what should.
Does that cost our county? How much does that cost our county? Have an early bond issue.
If you move up another one, that's just, for however long you move it up, you're just going to pay your interest on it that much longer. Yeah.
Guys, I think he's gave us our answer to move on to 50 right now and hold tight, keep an eye on things. So, do we have a motion to move forward?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank
To
you.
move on.
For 50 million. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Chris, I need your address in case it goes way up real quick.
It's right down the hall.
Okay.
Okay, new business, item 4D, bid tabulation, construction of new parking area. Everybody?
In your packet is a bid tab for the building of the parking lot across the street in the vacant lot of the Hale property. And the low bid was presented by Summers and Taylors for $269,214. In their bid, they also had a couple of hold on a minute. Couple of exceptions. Can you come up with that word? Couple of exceptions. One, in that 269,000 does not include any cost that they might incur if they find unsuitable soil that wouldn't hack or rock if they run into any rock. So that would be added. If they run into any of those, that would be added. It's so what I would like for us to do, what my recommendation is, that we accept this bid. It's in line with what we bid the renovation of the house and the development of the parking lot together about a year and a half ago. This price is in line, a little above what the parking lot was at that time. So we think we have a good bid here. But I would like to set the budget for the project at $325,000 just to cover any cost that might be incurred from soft soil and rock. We will receive, I talked to Summers and Taylors today, we will receive in their contract a unit cost per square foot for dirt that has to be replaced, similar to what we're doing with the Justice Center. We have a unit cost there, and then we'll also have a geotechnical firm also verify that the amount of dirt they said they had to remove and replace was in fact that amount, and then for any rock as well. So that's my recommendation. Is one is that we accept their bid at the 269, understanding that there's these exceptions. We set a total project budget at 325.
This is a complete job with curbing and the landscaping that's involved around the parking lot.
Correct.
Mayor, let me ask you a question. This old house over here, this old maintenance house.
Yes.
That's over behind it and all that good stuff. What's keep, other than a few maintenance guys are in there and stuff like that, what's stopping us from tearing that down? And when they do that, have that done also? We could move the maintenance guys in that house for now, could we not?
We could. Sure.
And the thing we're gonna get it all done, that way they don't have to come back in, recurb it and do whatever.
We would have to, we would have to probably rebid it with that addition to the scope to demolish the house.
I mean, we got this big, can we bid taking the house down or something? I mean, it just makes more sense to me.
I talked to Terry about that, and to be honest with you, Tim, I can't remember what he said. I know what they would like. This is what the maintenance folks would like to happen, is that once the Justice Center is done and all the inmates are moved, is their maintenance shop, the workhouse understands their maintenance shop.
And I understand it, but this is temporary.
Right.
Could that building possibly be moved?
What building?
The
workhouse?
Yeah, no, the maintenance building.
I
can remember.
don't think so. I don't think it's in condition, Bobby, to.
If you could, somebody come in and say, we'll take it, get it out of your way, I mean.
That's possible.
I haven't paid enough attention to it, to be honest with you.
We've had to rebuild the front porch and the back porch and.
I don't think we work with it, to be honest with you. That's my opinion.
If we tear down that
Take
hill,
order.
that's not going to change the configuration of the new parking lot that much, is it?
Not that much, you
For
pay,
what you got, it's gonna be cut off here, and it's gonna be cut off here, and it's gonna be just, let's make it nice the first time. And that way we don't have to spend any more money.
That maintenance building's already on the existing parking lot. Is this Summers and Taylor gonna affect the existing parking lot at all?
no.
Well, the side of it is.
I mean, it will, I mean, they'll butt up against each other, you know, there'll be some striping, but they're not
Then
resurfacing
when
the
you
old
take,
one or anything.
once it's done, then you take the house down, well, we should have, now we need to restripe it this way, and we need to lay more asphalt down here, and
Patch
it's
it
just
up.
a thought.
Patch it up otherwise.
It'll look patched up, yeah.
Put a flower bed in there.
Good. Greg worked on a couple.
There's not going to be a whole lot of parking space where the old house is, because part of it's got to be used for a walkway, isn't it?
There will be,
But do you know how it's gonna be routed? Because the fact is, it's gonna be there, it's gonna be in the way, so we don't know. We don't know.
and we'll do whatever you want us to
I
do.
mean, it's coming down anyway, eventually.
I'd like to make a motion that we do that.
We need to probably make
Your motion is that,
We go ahead, before we approve this,
that we reject this bid
uh-huh,
and rebid it.
with the house taken down.
Or do you want me to, we can do a change order, we can enter into a contract and
That'd be okay too.
we have a little bit of room if we do accept the 325 budget limit that you've asked. So what about,
I can't hear you, Chris, I'm sorry.
well, I'm just saying, he's asked for 325 top budget limit, and you've got some help to watch the dirt removal, make sure everything.
what, the second bid, let's go back to the bids and then we can kind of, the second bid was $500,000. So there's a big difference between the two. So we could issue a change order, enter into a contract, issue a change order for the demolition of the house and then the paving of that area. And we would still be way under the second bid. And I don't know that we could get it under 325. I just don't know. Sure.
You've got a basement that's got to be filled in.
Yeah, and there'll be some soils there underneath the house that we'd have to be removed probably.
In the meantime, what are you going to do with the maintenance part? Put them in the hell house?
Could have been a hell house for a while.
Okay.
So we've got a motion on the floor to accept the bid as is and expect a change order in the demolition of the home and redesign the parking.
I can, let me talk to him about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me go.
Does that include the 325 or just the bid amount?
Yeah.
Well, with the exceptions,
Yes.
I'm recommending more than the bid amount because
I
the
understand that
exceptions.
it was just said that the motion would be to accept the bid, and I think we need to say that the motion needs to be the 325.
Well, that's what we need to change order in there. We need to go
You're
back
not
to
saying in the motion how we're going to pay for it, it's not fine.
It'll be out of general fund
Yeah.
balance. Yeah,
Okay.
fund balance.
Are we clear on the motion? The motion, the way I understand it, the motion is to accept the bid for 325, expecting a change order for the demolition of the home and reconfiguration of the
It's
asphalt.
prepping that area for that.
And paving
paving.
That's the way I understand the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Good idea, too.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Item 4E, Hamblen Boat Dock, please.
The owners of Hamblen Boat Dock are in the process of negotiating a sale to Richie Bear and Mike Boyd. Richie and Mike are here. They've approached the county about the lease that we have with the current owners. They're an owner finance. They want to extend the lease to, so it's a 20-year lease. I guess the question is, and I think the county attorney will address it, is do we want to issue a new lease? Do we want to just amend the current lease, which we did last time that we had a change of ownership? And I'll call on Chris to address that issue.
There are some negatives and positives to doing this in a couple of different ways. The lease that we have needs to be amended somewhat before we go about the possibility of assigning it. If we do a new lease, we lose the original lessees as obligors to pay what was originally agreed to be paid in the original lease. I don't know if I said that very well, but by assigning the lease, we will maintain both the former lessees and the new lessees, or the new operators of the dock, as obligors to pay what was originally to be paid through the original lease. Talking about extending it, we can do that through amendment of the lease that we currently have, and then assign that. That's what I would recommend, unless something comes to our attention that makes that change somehow. I've reached out to attorneys who are supposed to be representing both the original lessees and the proposed new lessees, and I really haven't gotten any information from either of them.
With the lease up now?
I believe the lease runs, that's a problem. I got to pull my glasses up. I handed that out to each of you.
23.
31st, 2030.
So
Yeah, we've got a good long time left, and if they want to extend it to enable their financing, we can do that.
we can really raise them up right now high.
Well, there's some things that we haven't completely complied with in the old lease. We want to fix that in terms of adjusting the rent every 5 years. That's kind of gone by a little bit. It needs to be addressed. So we need to get the current rent up to what it is supposed to be, as opposed to what it is, for one thing.
I've got a little concern that there's a trailer on this side. There it is. Now, could we not work where somebody would move that thing, because it's a health hazard and an eyesore?
Well, that trailer was allowed in the original lease. But that doesn't mean that it has to be allowed going forward, and that's could be very well part of what we
I
talked
think
about.
it should be, we need a statement in the lease that it be removed by somebody.
Yeah, Howard, the future operators are going to remove it.
They are removing it.
Yeah, they're planning.
You're gonna put that in writing?
Yeah, I was going to address that one other issue in just a second.
All right, thanks.
Any questions? Any questions? Mayor, is this action?
No, just to let you know that we're working, that the attorneys are working on it. We want to let you know what was going on with it, and that we'll be back with the leak, with an amendment or whatever comes up.
You guys will be the deciders.
Yes, sir.
Get to look at it in plenty of time to make a decision and get it done for the summer. Okay. Thank you.
On the trailer, they do own it, and so the new owners will own it, and their plan is to remove it and then replace it with another structure that a livable structure, and they'll go through the planning department and get the permits and everything that's required.
Do we get paid as a campsite there or a campsite there, or
It's I think it was originally put there for a groundskeeper to live in years ago. Or is that?
I think
That
both
ramp
are.
driver, they have a security guard.
so are we? Is there going to be like a site that we can rent out, or
No, it'll be their site.
It'll be their
They'll be
site.
leasing that.
that's included into the lease?
Yes.
Mayor, what about the part of the boat dock that's dilapidated, so
You
they,
guys want to address that? The part of the boat dock that we talked about?
yes, I mean, it's basically.
CDOT is what we're gonna either, that's gonna be cleaned up, hauled off.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, sir.
Sorry about that. VDOC is the one that's broke off, and the previous guys that ran it and pulled it around to the side over here and tied it to the trees. We're gonna remove that and get it took care of, possibly remove VDOC all completely and refurbish it and put a new dock in right there. So, we'll have, hopefully within first couple of months when we take over, that'll be done. That'll all be cleaned up. It won't be an eyesore no more. It'll take a little while to get the trailer out of there as well, but that's our first project, is try to get that stuff took care of.
Do you have to go through TVA for any of that stuff?
Not that I'm aware of.
That'd be a welcome sight to see that.
Yeah.
Well, we've got our work cut out for us to clean that place up, but that's what we want to do, is make it fun again, make it generate income, make it a nice place.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions for us?
Just one more topic on the dock. Go to the next picture. All right, this is the parking area that's across the street from where you go down the steps to the dock. And what we talked about when we had our meeting last week was the new operators want to expand that parking area. So, is there another picture, or is that the only one? That's the only one. Along that area, all the way down. If you're looking, let's say that you're looking down the road and the boat dock's on your right, and you're looking all the way down to where the boat ramp is. And there's this parking lot on your left, or the parking area. I wouldn't call it a lot, but it's a parking area. Is their desire is to expand that parking area down that side of the street, and which they would have to fan the bank, cut the bank and fan it back, and at their cost. And it would be a gravel parking area, which we would look at in future parks grants that we would receive, look at paving it. But what we talked to them about is developing that parking area at their cost. But we would need your permission to do the work on the county property, on the park property, as far as feathering back the slope where it would be cut.
My understanding on this area here, where the pine tree, I thought we were going to go up there and go to more campsites up there.
No, that's on the ramp.
That's on the ramp?
Yeah, that's on the ramp.
Any other discussion?
I would like a decision on that, so they would know, or a recommendation on that, whether they would know they could go ahead and do that or not.
I'll make that motion if we do that.
I'll second that motion.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Mr. Chairman, just before you get to the budget amendments, let me just address some of the issues Ms. Doty talked about. The real estate service RFQ went out last week, so we hopped right on it as soon as you guys made that decision. Painting in the wintertime is kind of hard, especially when it's outdoors on a roof. So we'll issue the RFP for the roof painting, in another month or so. The library guttering is being worked on right now as we speak. We had a bid submitted or a quote submitted that was under $10,000. So we had the three quotes required without bidding it, and the insurance company's premium paid for most of the repairs. I think there's going to be about $2,500 that'll have to be paid by the library, shared by the city. So you appropriated $5,300. It's going to cost us $1,200 to $1,500 in that neighborhood. I didn't think you guys would be too disappointed us saving some money. So those are the evidence.
Thank you, sir. On the 4F budget amendments. Come on up, Tracy. Hamblen County Board of Education budget amendment number 5, increase of $92,921.44.
Good evening. This amendment represents almost $93,000 in additional pre-K grant funding that the state has made available to our district. And this grant funding would allow us to locate an additional pre-K classroom at Fairview Marguerite Elementary. You have to answer any questions.
Motion to approve.
Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Item 4F2, Fund 101, Other Facilities and Maintenance, $2,255. Ms. Hurst?
This just moved some money around that was appropriated for HVAC units into the account of the maintenance department, where some of the HVAC expenses are actually expended. This kind of just helps match that up.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second. Question.
Yes.
Do you know what HVAC you're talking about?
I'm sorry.
Do you know what HVAC you're talking about?
It was at the
Out of the out of the maintenance budget, we replaced a unit at the satellite office. Is that?
Yeah, yeah. Got my memory. Thank you.
I had to think.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Item 4F3, Fund 101, Other Public Safety Homeland Security Grant, $22,000.
As the EMA has received an executed contract for the 2021 Homeland Security Grant, and this just adds funds both to the revenue side and to the expenditures side.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Alan Harlan. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Chairman, that's all we have.
Thank you, Chairman Prescott. At this time, the chair will recognize Chairman Tim Goins to the Public Service Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. I call the Public Service Committee to order. Any visitors to address the committee? Seeing none. New business. Resolution to adopt the various international codes planning department. Tina?
Okay, before you be a resolution from the planning office for the permits and inspections department. This is for the adoption of the 2018 building codes. This is a mandatory adoption to make sure that we're in compliance with the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. The planning commission did approve the adoption of the code at their February 7th, 2020 planning commission meeting. Any questions?
There were no changes to the swimming pool and spa code, because I didn't see nothing.
I would have to turn that over to Daryl, and he'll have to explain any changes as a building codes.
Well, in the new code, 2018, I think the only difference is added an appendix for the swimming pool. That appendix wasn't in the 2012, so they just took a lot of verbiage out of 2012 and put it into the appendix. So there's really no change as far as the code goes that I'm aware of.
So we've not had any code changes basically last year, correct?
Not last year. The last one in the resolution, we had it listed. In 15, we adopted the 2012, so that the last adoption was in 2015. And that's where most of the changes that we had. Those were most of the changes. This time, there's not as many changes to the code as the 2018.
You say something about a pool?
There's swimming pool and spa codes to this one. That's what Daryl was talking about.
Well, that can.
Yeah, they just kind of took it out of the 2012 and just made it its own little appendix type of code now.
Is that where you're going to enforce swimming pools that don't have a fence around?
We already do.
Well, we do that now on new pools that
You do it now?
new pools that come in that are permitted. That is a code requirement to have a barrier. Yes, so we've been doing that. There's probably a lot of old pools out in the area that doesn't, but a new permit will require it. So.
Any other questions?
You know, I hate to complain, but we were sort of have been at a disadvantage going through here simply because we don't have a copy, the original copy, and the changes are being recommended that we delete this and replace it with something else, but we here don't have a copy of the original document, so that puts us at a little bit of a disadvantage, and it makes me uncomfortable trying to deal with it, because these codes can get rather contentious with some people, especially, and then let me go back on the violation section. Are those violations similar to what we have now as far as the fines, or is it basically the same? Okay, thank you.
It's just small changes in the code, and Daryl brought the code book. I don't know if we could list everything possibly that was changing from one edition to the next edition.
Okay, I've got one other question, and this question was asked me by a engineer, not from nowhere in this code right now do we have any requirements for a sprinkler system in residences.
No, that's one of the things, the changes you're referring to there, where you're deleting a section. That is one of the sections that would be deleted. So.
It will be deleted.
Yes.
Okay, well, I understand that will be a nightmare if we pass it. So, okay.
And most of the,
I'm taking your word for it.
Most of those verbiage on the deleting, and just about every bit of that came from the 2012 adoption. Because the book itself, most of the verbiage is the same, except the area for the fire sprinklers is one great example that was added that we chose to delete and not require that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Daryl, is there, have you had any feedback from some of the builders in town about these upcoming changes? Have you had any feedback from them? Anybody? I'm sure they're aware it's coming, or they think it is.
Yeah, I mean, the ones I deal with is basically already doing it because the city already adopted it 6 or 8 months ago, I believe, now. So they already know the changes, and, I mean, most of them.
I got you, yeah.
Not all of them built in the city probably, but.
The majority of them.
Majority of them.
I've already been working with this code.
So it's not gonna be like, a big surprise.
Okay.
Real quick, is this gonna affect any existing property right now, anything that's already built? Is this gonna change any penalties or imply restrictions on people, what they've already got?
Not on existing, it would be just new construction or any additions, alterations, anything new that we would be having to go out to do inspections on.
Even demolition.
We do the demolition, but I don't know that there was any changes in the
I just
demolition.
noticed you used the word demolition.
Okay, anything else?
I make a motion to adopt.
Got a motion? Got a second? Second. All in favor, make a motion saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 4B, election campaigning and county property. Chris?
I've handed out to you all an email received from CTAS relative to campaigning in public buildings, and particularly the courthouse, and that's what we have been asked about. The trend is actually less restrictive in terms of freedom of speech than more restrictive. And if you'll see there in the first paragraph of that email, it refers to a county official having a particular policy about campaigning, about their employees campaigning. Note that people are not supposed to be paid for campaigning while they're doing a job for the county. They're not supposed to be doing that. But having said that, I also want to address the quote, Little Hatch Act, which has to do with state employees and state buildings, which I think was errantly referred to as prohibiting campaigning in this courthouse. I don't believe that it applies. In fact, in no way does it apply to this courthouse. I think it would be advisable for this body to not attempt to restrict campaign materials in the courthouse. I think this body could pass a resolution that says that they would like to have that particular, or those particular materials in a certain area where the public can have access. Posting something on the bulletin board, leaving campaign materials in a certain area, that has been suggested. But in terms of outright making an ordinance that is more restrictive than state law, I think we will run afoul of both state and federal constitutional problems. So that is what I have learned. Or any questions about that? I know that there's been a complaint about an employee handing out material. Well, if you're looking at email, as long as that officer or that office holder has a policy that doesn't restrict that, then it appears to be something that is not restrictable, certainly by this body. Be restricted by the office holder themselves. Now, are they being paid to campaign? Does it constitute being paid to campaign? I don't know. I think this body could also pass a resolution that discourages county office holders from having personnel campaign while they're working. Does that have the force of law that you discourage it? I don't think so. But at least you will have taken some action on this. So
If we discourage it here, if you get up at that mic and say, hey, I'm running for county commission, we can't do that here?
I think that's a separate issue, Commissioner Goins. I think we're talking primarily about campaign materials appearing
in the courthouse, places that you would not ordinarily think of campaign materials appearing. Campaign material being handed out by an employee of an office. It looks like, unfortunately, as much as some might want to restrict that activity, my understanding and belief after researching it and getting with CTAS is that we would not be wise.
So basically just leave it the way it is.
And I think it would not be wise for us to be seen to be either accommodating someone or helping someone or trying to punish someone that's running for office. I don't think we want to we want everybody to be on the same footing, I think. I could be wrong about that. I may misjudge that, but I think partly what this email has to say is that as long as people are on an equal footing, it's going to be okay. And that's what we want to encourage. But we don't want to encourage the restriction of the First Amendment right to campaign and free speech. So that's, I'll leave it up to you folks to, fashion something that you think is appropriate. The idea that you have an area in the courthouse that is designated for public materials, for business cards, for any type of campaign material, that be the place as opposed to a particular office or a particular location other than maybe a bulletin board. At one point in time, we had a bulletin board where we posted public notices. I don't think it's really used for that much anymore, but it could be, and that area could be somewhere else in the courthouse. I think that would not be a bad idea if this body wanted to think about that.
Thank you. Chairman, we need a motion on this?
I don't think we should have a motion unless we need to be referred to a committee for further study.
Yeah, if there's anything that you want us to, county attorney's done the research, and we do have, for some public notice material, we have a bulletin board in the breezeway. There's bulletin boards in this building. We could set aside, put a small table set aside where candidates could put their pamphlets or whatever, if you guys chose to do that. Or I would rather, this is just from a practical standpoint, I would rather something like that be encouraged rather than, there's candidates all over county buildings.
I can't make a motion, but I agree with that.
I think if you just, he's reported it,
Yeah.
we have no recommendation.
I think it's a little late in the game to enforce anything right now, but moving forward, I think we could, have some more discussion.
Right, okay.
Mr. Moore, I think that's part of the recommendation as well. It's too late in the game to attempt to do anything that has any real substance at this point in time, because we'd be seen to be punishing someone or accommodating someone. And that's CTA's recommendation as well, that after this next election, that if you choose to do something of any substance, that would be the time to do it.
Well, in that case, Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Goins. At this time, the chair will recognize Chairman Stepp of the Calendar and Rules Committee.
Thank you, Chairman. Call to order the Calendar and Rules Committee. Any who wish to address the committee may do so at this time.
Edna Green, 4981 Callan Road. Let me first thank you, Mr. Katz, for addressing freedom of speech. That's a valuable asset for each and every one of us. Some of you fought brilliantly for that, and I recognize Mr. Moore for that, and I appreciate you fighting for my freedom, sir. I was one of the ladies that was targeted on 9/13/21 to sue citizens wearing a small piece of foam on their shirts. I want to know if the 9/13/21 vote was valid to authorize a lawsuit. If it wasn't valid, I'd like to see it rescinded so that I don't have to be worried over a piece of foam that was on my shirt.
Is that on the agenda?
Yeah, just a minute. Your calendar rules, sir, give me a minute. Please show me that level of respect. Please.
It's not a part of the agenda.
I know it's not a part of the agenda. But you won't have another opportunity for me to ask you to do this. You did this. You did this. And in all fairness, yes, we're gonna check with Chris to see if that vote was valid for a lawsuit. I'd like to know if you're going to push a lawsuit so that I can be prepared, or if I have to fear being pulled over and taken to jail. And it's a very valid concern. I'm an old lady.
Ms. Green, it's not on the agenda, so I can.
Oh, I know it's not on the agenda, sir. I'd like to see you put it on the agenda, sir. That's what this is for, right? Thank you.
You know what it's for, address the meeting.
Magnolia Ave, Stevens Road. I'd like to say Chris is absolutely correct about the Little Hatch Act as the state facilities and state buildings, not county buildings. But at the same time, I think you're still opening up a Pandora's box. And it's so ironic to hear all this discussion about freedom of speech when we have what Ms. Green just mentioned, a piece of foam. And what I am getting at, Mr. Stepp, I would like to see several things put on the agenda for your commission meeting. One would be to either announce that the vote was valid on the foam and let us know that you do intend to file suit. Or let us know that the vote was not. I want this added to the agenda, Finance Committee agenda for the 24th. Or announce that the vote was not valid and rescind what you did. It's as simple as that. I'd also like you to do the same thing, putting it on the Finance Committee agenda for the 24th to let us know.
Don't need to go to your commissioner, your district, and ask that from your commissioner of that district. That would be something you really know of your commissioner.
What does she have to do with, can she put it on the calendar?
That would be something you need to ask her.
Can she put it on the calendar? That's what I want. I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. I'm going right on because I'm on point.
Not on the agenda right now.
You've already said before it can be about adding something to the agenda.
Chairman Taylor. She is in order. She is in order in recommending
the clock, please.
that something be added to the agenda.
Okay.
So she can do that.
I know I can. So I'd like to see that put on the agenda as well. Let us know about both of those, or the foam lawsuit and Mr. Goins' lawsuit, or his motion where he asked for a declaratory judgment as to whether a constable or a deputy can remove a person or persons from meetings who are violating the rules of the body. Was that a valid vote? And if it was, are you going to proceed? If it was not, then it needs to be rescinded. And by the way, if you do bring a lawsuit on a deputy or constable being able to remove somebody for violating the rules of the commission, I hope that same sheriff, deputy, constable will remove every one of you when you violate the rules of the body, as you did at the last meeting when you voted on a contract in a violation of the 10-day rule. It works both ways, folks. Finally, since Mr. Brittian is opening up and answering a few things. I'd like to know if the health department contract has been signed that you all authorized on the 24th. Does anybody here know? Probably not. Thanks.
Ann Horner, 1535 Panther Creek Road. I would just like to see, one thing added to the agenda, or a committee formed to discuss training each head of each committee as to what their job is.
Does anyone else?
Gwendolyn Holden. I want to talk about the planning commission. It's a joke. You make rules, regulations, you have code enforcer that you just hired, pay him a good salary, give him good benefits, shake your head all you want to, Mr. Stewart, it's all right. I'm still going to talk. Anyway, they don't even enforce what they've got. They got codes they don't even enforce. You get your Cherokee Park cleaned up, I'm glad you did. There's other areas in this town that need it too, not just Cherokee Park.
Anyone else? Your comment on the 3A on the old business we have none. 4A on the new business review of the counter items. I have a formal motion, or I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chairman, I think we need to add, excuse me, under 6D, with construction new parking area with the addition of the change order. Need to add that in, please.
Mr. Doty. River County Island, with addition of 6B in the parking lot. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Under 4B, the consent calendar items. Do I have a motion?
We need a motion to approve the regular calendar with the change. We've already, or was this motion?
I made a motion, but there was never a second.
Oh, well, I'll second
He
that.
added, because Doty added, Commissioner Doty added 6B between the votes.
I just added in the purchase change that we made.
Sorry.
Change order.
Okay, under 4B, consent calendar.
I think we still, like you said, need a second on 4A.
4A. I'll second it.
Go ahead and second.
4A, and then the change, 6B, Thomas said it was 10.
Yeah, we was like that.
Okay, approval of the river counter items with the addition of 6A and 4. Do I have a motion? Got a motion, a second. Second, no. Any discussion? Any discussion? All approved, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Under 4B, consent calendar items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Warner, have a second?
Second.
Second, no, any discussion? All approved, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you, Chairman Step. I've got a couple announcements to make before we adjourn. First of all, I want to remind the commissioners to please leave your notebooks. You can drop them off in the basket over there that will help Trish out and getting them ready for us for the 24th meeting. Mark Hickman, Fire Chief with the West Hamblen County Fire Department, will have the new fire truck recently purchased here at the courthouse for you to see at the commission meeting, March the 24th. They will be at the courthouse around 3:30. He will park across the street. If you want to see the new fire truck. We stand adjourned.